Hello, good afternoon. How are you? Let me make sure, as always, that I'm live. Sorry for the noise. Um, I am on here this afternoon. I'm very excited about this topic, but I need to make sure I'm live before I start talking. Okay, so I'm excited. Hi, how is everyone doing? My name is Kristen Nicole Mann, and I help Black women specifically find their true authenticity through all things creative. So that could be painting, writing, storytelling, anything that you could use your hands, I can help you with. But today I have an exciting topic, and some may know, some may not know. I'm not really putting myself in the position to be better than anyone. I just like to bring this information to you because since I help, women find their true authentic selves through creativity, the whole reason why I started this is because um, there was a blockage when it came to me teaching people how to do artwork, specifically painting. I used to do sip and paint classes a lot. I also did, obviously, I still teach children, but with the adults, like adult women, I found that there was this blockage when it came to creating. And it could be even like, I did like a vision board workshop one time, and I remember this lady, she was like about to cry because she didn't know what she couldn't see a vision for her life. And she was getting upset because, she was just like, I'm not deserving of having better for my life. And I was just like, where is this coming from? That, back then I'm younger. I don't even think I was 30 yet, and I was experiencing like a 50-year-old woman ball up like a child because of her not seeing a vision for herself. Now, what I'm talking about today goes along with, it connects to maybe why you have this blockage of not being able to create. Epigenetics has been something that has been discussed a lot in general in the science world. This is nothing new, but as a Black woman, I never heard this in any of the circles that I've been around. I heard of it because I look into like mental health stuff. You could hear it from that, but as far as conversation, you don't hear epigenetics at all. So within digging into this topic, I recognized that you as a Black woman could be living the life of your great grandmother, your great great grandmother, all it's someone that's not you. Because in our nervous system, in our DNA, we could have a fear. This is some of us. We could have like a fear, or we could have just be like high anxiety, uh, paranoia, things like that. And my experience, I looked into because you can see a lot of videos on this. You can see it on YouTube, anywhere, TikTok. You can probably type it in on Google. But what they tell you to look into is what year was your maternal grandmother's birth, and then when was your maternal mother birth? What was happening amongst them those years? So specifically for me, my grandparents, they were all born into the Great Depression era. And I don't know if you remember, but I'm just going to put a PSA out for it anyway. I had brought a guest on and we talked about generations. And then I had brought my mom on as well, which is on my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe, like and subscribe. But I brought on guests to talk about generational trauma, how the generations are different from each other. And it all led to continuing to dive into that topic. And so when I did, they were saying a lot of like, pay attention to the years that your ancestors basically was born into. And that could be in like tucked in your DNA. And you could be operating as if you were in the Great Depression, like as if you were born in the civil rights. And my mother, she was born the same year that Rosa Parks sat on the bus and didn't get up. So this whole boycott, it was a high tension time in America in 1955. Then my grandmother was born in 1935. So that was the thick of the Great Depression. And so if that was a stressful time, and then when she was carrying my mother and she was maybe stressed about how is she going to eat? How is she going to, scared about, racism and all these things, it could be passed down to me. Now, spiritually, this is talked about now in the church and all of that now, as of recent. Back then, I did not hear this a lot, and I'm not even that old. Like it's surprising to me because I'm like, I never heard this parallel when it came to sitting under teachings or anything. They just kind of was like, you need to read the Bible, you need to know Jesus, and that was it. It was never like the nitty gritty of what healing is. And so when it comes to unlocking your creativity, you could have these forces, these dark forces going against what you're trying to do because you are doing something that your grandmother may have not been allowed to do. You're doing something your great grandmother didn't even think of. Back then when my grandmothers was being, themselves in the world, they really couldn't be themselves. They might have been gifted at entrepreneurship. They might have been gifted at creativity, but it was a different time period. So when you look at your generational trauma, that could be blocking you from making a simple painting or taking it on as a hobby, taking any creativity outlet as a hobby. It could be blocked because your DNA is so used to not creating. Your DNA is so used to, specifically for Black backgrounds, African-American backgrounds, we weren't allowed to even read. We weren't even allowed to read. So when you have these things mixed in our DNA with the fear, the anxiety, the depression, adultery, idolatry, all of these things are coming, with you in your life if you don't recognize it. And so epigenetics, let me make sure I put the definition on the screen, because if you're a nerd like me, you would be really excited about this conversation. And I think Black women need to be more aware of these type of definitions and stuff, because we need the term in order to know how to maneuver through life. So let me see if I can put this in the comments. Epigenetics. And I want you all to take time to go look yourself. I probably spelled it wrong, but okay, let's see. All right, so you're going to block my face a little bit, but epigenetics, I spelled it wrong, whatever. Relating to changes, especially heritable changes in the characteristics of a cell or organism that result from altered gene expression or other effects not involving changes to the DNA sequence itself. So this has a lot to do with DNA. It has a lot to do, and sometimes people don't think that they're affected by this because we like to think that the world is only rainbows and sprinkles and sunshine. And just because I don't um, live necessarily the same life that my grandparents did or my great great parents did doesn't mean that I still don't feel the effects of what they went through. And I remember, a story my granddad told me about, on my dad's side, told me about walking to school, and kids would throw rocks at him, and they would get made fun of because they didn't have like the best of the best. And you had to walk like 3 miles to school. And if my granddad went through that, then his wife, my grandmother, went through that as well. And so as a Black woman, I think about these things when this comes into perspective, because I'm like, okay, when you have that confidence, when you show up, with in all your glory, it's like you are, like that saying says, like, you're your ancestors' wildest dreams. I don't necessarily do ancestral worship. I don't go that route. But I do know that there are familiar spirits that could follow you from generation to generation, and they aren't necessarily the good things. There's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of disparities in our community. And when that is passed down from generation to generation to generation, there's an issue, there's a problem. And so are you going to be the problem solver, or are you going to allow your genetics to continue the cycles? And when you're a generational curse breaker, I think it's be very careful of, and I'm even careful of this, like labeling yourself as things before you really take a deep dive into what's in your bloodline, because it sounds cute, but when you really are going against the grain of what your family is used to, or they have picked up and just called life, it's hard. It gets like a wall that you're going up against. And you will be brought through, but it just feels like a wall sometimes. And so how can epigenetics, what does that have to do with you creating? It has to do with a lot, because you can pick up the habits of creativity from your past. So if you had ancestors that weren't allowed to create, they had to use or tap into those skills for someone else, and it was like majorly controlled. Let's talk about slavery. Like, you were given this task to do. If you didn't do it right, then there were consequences. That is a bit of a paranoia, like not a bit, a lot. And so sometimes, as us descendants of slaves, we sometimes are paranoid at our jobs. We're sometimes paranoid, even in entrepreneurship. I have residue of being like paranoid, like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit too free. Like, I'm feeling a little bit too free. Is somebody gonna have a problem? Am I gonna get, is it a consequence that I'm gonna have for being too free? Like, this is real stuff, y'all. So I wanted to take a deep dive into so it has to do with, I'm just copying and pasting what I've read, but I'm going to bring it up on the screen. So, moreover, epigenetics in psychology provides a framework for understanding how the expression of genes is influenced by experiences and the environment. Key words: experiences and the environment, to produce individual differences in behavior, cognition, personality, and mental health. So this says right here that it's your framework, your psychology um, framework. And it's important to know what your framework is before you start creating. Now, a lot of talk says, just start the business, just do this, do that, create this, create. And I used to be one of those people like, oh, it's easy for people to create. Like, why are they not creating? Why don't they start the business? I wouldn't necessarily put starting a business or even having a job being called being a creative, because you can be a creative without getting paid. You can be a creative without having that title, tacking that title onto it like a job or entrepreneurship. That's why the beauty of my journey is that it didn't start like that. It got tricky when I started like putting titles onto it. But I didn't start it out like that. I didn't start out saying like I was even an artist. Like I was just creating. And so when you add titles to it, it kind of takes the freedom away. And there's so many definitions of creativity out here that I think it gets confusing to people sometimes, especially women. It gets confusing to us because we're like, we don't have time. And that's a lot that I hear from Black and brown women, is like, I don't have time to do XYZ, to have an outlet. I have to take care of my kids. I have to work. I have to take care of my husband if I have one. I have to take care of the kids first because I'm a single mom. I have to do all the, I have to. But do you have to, or are you continuing a cycle that was instilled in your DNA? Is your DNA not allowing you to set a time, that free time for creating? Is your DNA, how it's wired, how your framework is it not allowing you to have that freedom? And these are questions we have to ask ourselves, because even within the freedom, you can feel like you are still a slave. And you have to question that, because freedom is supposed to be freedom. If I could freely create a book today and put it out today at the same time, why would I want to block myself from that? Why would I think that that's a bad thing? So these are things that led to me taking more of a deep dive into my DNA, because it's important. One of my grandmothers, they were a single mom and they had 6 kids. I think 6. Yeah. 6 kids, and had to raise them herself. But she also worked, very independent, survived the Great Depression, doing things at a time where single mothers wasn't really a thing. That wasn't really glorified. So then you go to the other grandmother. Other grandmother was a homemaker, wore her apron, worked, for the government, but had a husband that would take care of the bills and everything, had 6 kids, was able to raise them in a home, a nice home. Two different lives. But if I go off of epigenetics, it's based off of your maternal mother and her mother. So that would be your grandmother and your mother. So if your grandmother was born in the Great Depression and, life played out the way that it did for her, and then she had my mother during the civil rights, you see the blockages? DNA wise, I could be born and feel like my mindset could be like in the Great Depression. Like I could react that way. In the Great Depression, where people having sipping paints, were people freely able to write books and all? No. So I could take that on as an identity. So I just wanted to go over that really quickly. I will be sending out an email about this because I want you all to sign up for what's next. I have done one-on-one consultations with people about their creativity, but it's my duty to actually give them more of this because nobody's going to look this up on their own. They don't know what's wrong. They don't know maybe what's in their DNA. They don't know why they can't just sit down and journal. A lot of people don't want to sit down and journal. They would rather be busy with other things. And that could not actually come from you personally. That could be coming from your DNA. Your DNA is built, the framework is built for you to not do that. Your DNA is built for you to stay in a box. So my descendant, if my son has a child or two, it's going to be based off of me. That's called legacy. That's how important this stuff is. And it shook me because I was like, whoa, we be just doing stuff sometimes and we don't slow down and think about how this is going to affect the generations after us. Are my grandchildren going to have this mindset of going the highest heights? If I don't do it, why would they feel like they could do it? It's very rare for someone to break generational curses, to be real. Like, it's very rare. But I'm happy that there's more conversation about it. I'm happy that more people are awakening to what is blocking their creativity. But I look at, in my position, I am the bridge to get you through to that side because it's not easy. And yes, we can be creative within our businesses. We can be creative within our job. But as Black women, I want us to just be. Like, we got to stop putting titles on everything. Like, it's you don't have to be a title to create. You can do that at home. Even with being a mom, do it with your kids. But even like that, like you have to get out of putting a title on it, because that is also a blockage. Because I'm not a painter. Oh, well, I'm not an artist. I can't do nothing like you. Did you see look up most of these contemporary artists that have made it big? Some of them are just painting a color on the canvas, and that's it. But what is the difference between them and you is that they know themselves. They're confident in that. They don't really care because they made the time and they put time and effort into their gifting. Whether it started out as a gift or not, some people, it don't start out as a gift. They just pick it up and then they're like, oh, I have this skill set. And then they come to the realization that they do have a gifting in what they're doing. So I hope this encourages you. Sign up for my newsletter. I put one out every month. This month I have talked about Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And then I also gave some tidbits on, this being a new month, things that you can do to be creative without that title. because I think that the title makes people nervous. And get out of the box. Like, stop trying to stay in the box. But I know if I needed help to get out of the box, there's several that definitely need help getting out of the box. So go forth and dive into this yourself. And I hope to see you on the next one. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Scrolling Kristen Nicole Man. And then you can follow me on TikTok at the same name. You can follow me on Instagram at the same name. And I look forward to coming back on here with some more topics. So have a good day. Bye.